Might as well.
You said side view is perfect.
Okay, we'll just do side view then. And I'll zoom out. Apologize for the technical difficulties. This kind of stuff happens when you're a low budget production, such as what I've got here.
The bribe the students to help you.
Yeah.
Extra credit, yeah.
Extra credit? What? Did we agree upon something that I'm unaware of? Okay. Okay, so we will stick with top view and side view and that kind of stuff. Hopefully when I switch to PowerPoint, that won't act up. So now I can fire up the old sucker machine. Come on, Holly.
I told you before we started it wasn't plugged in.
I don't remember that. Those of you that weren't here yesterday, this tool is going to pull, thank you, Holly. This tool pulls a vacuum, and we can check any one of these bores, and we calibrate this gauge set, so that way, when this is pulling through, and I'll put this in the end, this is a 40,000th of an orifice. Come on, Eduardo. Bree's gonna take over in a second. There's a 40,000th of a hole drilled inside this little cup plug that's in there. I hold it just right, it might shine. Trust me, it's there. And when I'm pulling through that orifice, I adjust these dials until I get 5 inches of vacuum. And then when I plug it off, I adjust the dial to the point where I get 25 inches of vacuum. So that way, no matter what kind of vacuum gauge I have, if I pull a 25, if I see 25 inches when I'm pulling vacuum on something, Mr. Side View, so I can talk to something. So when I'm pulling 25 inches on, when I see 25 inches, when I'm checking something, I know I got a perfect seal, which you usually don't see that unless you're checking something like a check ball circuit or something. I usually get at least 21 inches of vacuum or something. But if I ever check anything and I got as low as 5 inches of vacuum on it, then I know the area that's leaking around that valve is equivalent to this 40,000th of a hole, and that's way too much. Typically, 15 to 18 inches of vacuum is what you expect to pull on things, and if you don't get that, you'll probably have some kind of leakage around that bore. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll fire that up. Thank you, Holly. Well, first we'll calibrate it. And you can see we got 5 inches there or so. And then I plug it off. If it doesn't climb to 25, I got to adjust my it's there. I just don't think I had a good plug there. So yeah, that's 25 and 5. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and check it. Oh, here it is. Now, this right here is a plate that allows me to kind of seal off against these passageways. And I can pull the vacuum on that circuit. And you can see I'm a little less than 50. I'm 13 and a half inches of vacuum. That is too low. The other thing I had to check is with the boost valve installed. And I could put this in without the spring. I was supposed to check this passageway, and I did do that yesterday, and it was low. I'll check it again. I put the plate on it, but I really didn't have to have the plate on it. And you can see I'm only getting about 11 inches of vacuum on there. If I pulled that boost valve out and checked just the boost valve right over that little hole, we can see if it's the valve or maybe the bore that it sits in. And I'm getting about 18 inches of vacuum. So the valve isn't that bad, which means the majority of the seal that we're losing here is probably around the actual bushing itself that fits inside the pump. And the replacement ones, the improvements, have an O-ring built into there, so that fixes that. And I guess if I was persnickety, I can chuck this up my lathe and squeeze a little O-ring on there. And then I wouldn't have to go out and buy one. But that's all right. I'm not cheap. I'll go ahead and replace that. But okay, so that's the pump. And like I said, I didn't get to cover that because I forgot to take it apart. There were other questions, I thought. There are a lot of performance upgrades you could do on pumps, and we talked about that yesterday. I don't know if I have to get in there and talk about that again, but there is one other area with this 3/4 clutch burn-up that is a possibility, is that the stator where it bolts up to the pump half, that's obviously how fluid pressure comes from the pump through this, so these passageways through the stator, and then feeds into the holes in the middle. You want to make sure there's no grooves on that sleeve that's in there, and you want to make sure that there's no leaks between where the pump goes and where the 3/4 fluid is fed into it, which is one of these passages, I don't remember. So something I could have probably prepared for. You could put the vacuum pump on there and put your finger over it and try to check for a seal there. You'd have to do that on an assembled pump though. Okay, so that was one of the things. Probably switch to a side view. Now, another thing that I was very disappointed in yesterday, and Holly's already moving that direction. She can actually pick up my thoughts. It's impressive. It's like we're on the same wavelength or something, man.
I don't know.
Yeah. So,
I don't want to get yelled at again.
oh, yeah, I'm sure you will. So, but yesterday I had this drum completely assembled and I air checked it, and I swore that there were bubbles. I'm looking at the wrong camera now. I swore that there were bubbles coming out from around the shaft and the drum, and then it did. And then when we went live, it didn't. So I don't know what happened. Was there somebody put some bubble gum in there or something that sealed it off? Yeah. So I said, Bree, why don't we heat this thing up? Actually, I did another thing, is I took the drum apart. I like checking it when it's completely full or it's completely assembled, because then you're checking this seal up top, checking that little check ball up top. You're listening to see if there's a leak in the pistons. So I found cracks in these drums before, and you'll hear them leak. But this is a way that you can also test it. If you completely take it apart, to the point where all the pistons are out, all the innards, got all the innards taken out, and like this is the actual 3/4 piston right there. It's a molded piston. It's got rubber kind of molded onto a steel piston shell, and they're good. Believe it or not, some people reuse these. I would never do that. The replacement ones are just not that expensive, and I feel that these things will have issues if you don't take care of it. This right here, by the way, is the forward clutch housing, and that check ball right there is something you definitely want to check. And what a lot of people will do is they'll draw a vacuum over that little check ball and make sure it seals. It's got to be a perfect seal. If it's not a perfect seal, then that little check ball's in there. That's bad. And remember, if I mentioned this before, that check ball, the purpose is when this drum is spinning, this whole drum, including this piece, is spinning, and this forward clutch is released, which it's hardly ever released. It's applied in first, second, and third gear, fourth gear, all the forward gears. It's only released in reverse, but it's a way for the fluid to get out. When it's not, centrifugal force will allow the fluid to sneak out. That's the same purpose of that check ball that seats in there. Even the overrun piston, it has one in there as well, and you can check it with a vacuum pump on it. But like I said, I'm replacing those with new, and I will go ahead and check those on the new one too. But okay, so normally, you can go side view for a second. Normally, we would put this in a hot tank, pressure wash it, let it get warm, and then check it immediately. I don't have a hot tank here. I've written letters to my department chair how I will really need one really bad. So I think maybe if you guys start writing letters, no, I'm joking, don't do that. He helps me out one. But we just haven't gotten to the point. We used to have one, but it acted up so bad and they're so expensive, we haven't replaced it yet. And hopefully, he keeps promising me he'll get me one.
Just like the pressure washer?
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh,
Yeah. So I have to, if I want pressure wash, I got to use one in the wash bay, and every time you spray it, it blasts back at you, and you got to bring a raincoat.
I ordered some ponchos because of all this rain. You could borrow one.
Okay, I'll borrow one from you.
You're like,
So what we should have had is a commercial. So we can go to a commercial break, and when I come back, it'd be hot. But this thing might still be hot enough to the point. Let's just try it.
probably not hot enough, but
Well,
turn it on hot.
yeah. Where are you?
Come on, boy. Where you at?
Were you really? Look at that. Bubbles. To all you naysayers out there were actually bubbles. Lots of bubbles. And, okay, sorry if I got anybody dizzy by doing that. So the reason why this was important, and if you tuned in yesterday, you probably would remember that the spacer plate, which I've misplaced already, there it is, way over there. Now I got cords hanging around me. This spacer plate right here had the third clutch feed circuit. All the oil that feeds this third clutch has got to squeeze through that hole, which is not small. It's a decent sized hole, but by the time we had leaks here, engineered leaks, leaks that maybe occur around some seals, leaks in the servo circuits, all that stuff, then that all adds up. And you could potentially run into a clutch failure due to pressure loss. So these things, I used to always tell the students that they don't just wear out and fail, that they work fine all the way up to a point. And I talked to Bree, and that's when I was stumbling over part one. I was trying to explain that everything works fine, and it can handle it and adapt to it, but once it gets to a point where the leakage is too great, then that pressure loss is going to result in less clamping force on the clutch, and you're going to burn it up. So I got that part of my air gun stuck in there. Anyway, do you guys, do you kiddos have any questions so far? No? All right, and so yeah, this drum, I'm gonna have to, what I do, so nobody asked this question, we gotta press this shaft out, put some Loctite on it, push it in. I will inspect the bore when I push it out. If it's really galled up, then I just find a new drum for it. Oh, that brings me to it. Some people might be like, well, if you're gonna have to replace a drum, I would almost recommend, if you switch to the PowerPoint, I would almost recommend that you go to this, this right here. This product is from this guy, Mason Smith. He's got a website, 4l79.com. And what he does is he takes these shells, these input drums, and they're very expensive, but they're really high performance, really high quality. And he machines the outside of this drum and makes his own billet cap that threads onto it, and then these bolt onto it to keep the threaded cap from ever loosening. He's got his own custom stack up of clutches, and that will hold some serious power.
Hey boy, we can still see you.
Yeah, I know, I'm a webcam. Yeah, I wanted to show me. You see me in two spots though, don't you? You guys are, you're rough, man. Telling you what, it's off. So the fluid, the 3/4 fluid that leaks through that loose bore is going to end up on this side. And if we flip the valve body over, that's where that plug is. But see the spring? So any of that 3/4 fluid, I mean, you might not be able to see the spring, but it's there. This is just vented out. So anything that finds its way, 3/4 fluid pressure that finds its way past this plug is going to leak out right through that spring opening. And that's a no good, huh? So, yeah, you can see the spring now pretty good. There's the bore plug, the little pin that holds it in place, and it leaks right out. Oh crap, the bird's in here now. 2 birds are in here. Great. They're pretty, little robins. With my luck, they'll probably take a crap on my head. Well, don't lock them in here. They're in here now.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah, but just leave them in here, because what we'll do is we turn the lights off in here when we're done, and then they'll fly out. And then we turn the lights off in there and leave that door open, and then they'll fly out.
Where do you want them, in here or in there?
Well, leave them, just leave them be now, because we're recording live. This is streaming live. Here, birdie, birdie, birdie.
Yeah.
That only happens, this type of stuff only happens when, you know, doing live stuff, right? Okay, this area right here is blocked off, whereas on the other side of this, which you can't see on this drawing, but I shouldn't say it's blocked off, but this part here is not open to this other end of that valve. But on the other side, where I show it on the valve body, you can see the vent where it drains out. And that is where that fluid can get out. Okay, so apologize for that. But yeah, you can see where if you had a leak there, then that would definitely drop your 3/4 pressure, and that can cause an issue. All right, well, lastly, I just have some parts, because I told you I forgot yesterday of what bad parts look like. Some of these, most all of these are gonna, well, they're all gonna be pretty obvious. This is this is an input carrier. And the spline section is ripped out. This is the part that would normally spline to the output shaft, and you can see the bearings destroyed. That happens. You can even see where it's gouged in, metal. It's bad news. This drum right here is your typical reaction shell, and it says cracked. And it's actually together, but we rebuilt it for a different reason. And I like saving it because it just shows that, that one's got a split. And I know it's hard to see on camera, but that is actually a split right there in that seam. It's together on this side, so it didn't completely fail yet, but it wasn't going to last long. This is out of a 62 TE, and obviously not the same transmission, and this is a compounder drum, and it broke completely. But one of the things I like to show on it is the aluminum. You can see this ring wear. That's really excessive, and that's one of the things that fails. So a lot of people, when they rebuild transmissions, they want to look for the obvious, but something like that might not seem obvious, but it is actually bad. And same thing with our rollers and sprags and diodes and all that good stuff. This is a sprag race on a Honda, and there's a lip right there. It can actually catch your fingernail on it. The inner sprag race, real common on the 5-speeds. That is bad. So this thing here is needed for first gear. The sprag, the input shaft will drive the first gear through the sprag, and if this doesn't hold, it just slips, and you come to a stop, and it's like you're neutral. This is a pretty obvious one too. This was on a 46 RE, and this is the low roller, and it welded itself to it and ripped itself out of the case. Pretty bad, no good. This is a forward sprag out of a 4L60. This kind of stuff, and this is like the one we have in here. This is like a SKF sprag, so that's why I'm replacing the one that's in our transmission for sure. This gets damaged, broken, flipped over. A lot of times that happens when people are driving in reverse and they don't come to a stop and they just throw it and drive, and that jarring effect just under load and torque tears it up. Out of a 4R70W, this is a mechanical one-way clutch, a diode, and it locked itself up. They kind of can explode apart into tiny little pieces. And yeah, I guess the last two things I'll show you, this is all kind of, a lot of this is related to the one-way clutches, but this one is pretty cool. If Connor was here, he'd probably try to break those off, and then he'd piss me off because this is a teaching aid. And this not only broke in half, but you can see the rollers friction welded themselves. So as you can imagine, Connor would probably be sitting here fidgeting and pounding that thing off, Yeah. Could you imagine? Yeah. I could see him doing that. And then this side right here, I think this is off that same one. And it tore up the housing on it where the rollers ride. So now Bree took it, and she's gonna try breaking the pieces off.
I want to control myself.
It's tempting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, you could do side view. Well, that was the main thing that I wanted to do, is I wanted to cover some of the things that I kind of forgot to get to the point before we started yesterday, so that way I can do a more thorough inspection on this. We ordered parts for it. What I got I got two solenoids, two shift solenoids. One of them broke, so I figured I'd get two. They're only $6 or $7 a piece, and that's a Delco one, not an aftermarket one. I got the new style, the early style pressure control solenoid. Wow, I don't know if the microphone probably didn't pick that up, but I got the earlier style pressure control solenoid, and I got an adapter that Sonex makes that allows me to convert the harness over to this new design. No, I said that all wrong. Okay, so I got the early style pressure control solenoid, and I got an adapter that Sonex makes to convert the connector over to the early design, because then afterward I said so I can use the late designs. I don't remember what I said now. But Because this, obviously, the connector right here is designed to fit into this one, but the early design has a real wide and 2 spades, so I'll be able to cut, solder, and attach the early design, which is a better solenoid. These things are not as good. And I also ordered a Transgo drop-in valve for the pressure regulator, and I ordered a Sonix. You could switch that to the top. So I got a Transgo drop-in pressure regulator valve, and what a lot of times these things will do is they'll contact surface areas that were previously not contacted. So then I got a Sonix O-ringed boost valve. I got the Borg Warner Sprague to replace the SKF one. And I've got a kit that's from Seal Aftermarket Products, Toledo Trans Kit, and it comes also with the blue, hyper blue pistons and hyper blue accumulators. So we'll get to see how those all work. Those are great. Torque converter from Precision New Hampton. A new spacer plate from General Motors, 12 bucks. Can't beat it. And an AC Delco shell that I'm going to put in, even though it's not broken. I think it's probably good insurance. And I'll replace the bushings. I probably left some stuff out that I ordered. Obviously, I got to put a new 3/4 clutch back in it. I'm going to put new frictions in it. I'm going to reuse all the steels out of all the other clutches, though. And I got a new band coming. So that's, probably when you add the torque converter, there's a good $400, $450 worth of parts, maybe 400. It's not too bad by the time you add it all up. It sounds like a lot, but a lot of individual things. Now, that's one of the things I love about transmissions, too. Unlike a lot of areas of the vehicle, you can go in and get little parts and pieces. I can go in and get this spring by itself, or I can get a boost valve with a sleeve on it, and there's 3 or 4 different companies that make them, and they make different variations if I wanted to go performance with it and have some other options. It doesn't seem like you can do that with a lot of areas in the automobile so much anymore. You just don't have options. So I really appreciate that with the aftermarket. They really support the transmission shops. So that way we can keep rebuilding them and keep them on the road. What do you think, guys?
I think this should be longer.
Do you think it should be
Not
longer,
anymore.
huh?
You don't have anything else to add?
Oh, you're just harassing me because,
Oh, I can't win for losing. Wow.
yeah, I know. She was harassing me yesterday because it was taking so long and they were getting hungry. And nobody from the YouTube or Facebook world sent us a pizza like we had hoped. Then again, if they did, I don't know how they'd find us back here.
Right.
Ship it to SIU, just bring it in the back door, it'll be all right.
Which back door?
545 North Airport Road, Murfreesboro, Illinois. Find the doors that are left open in the back of the shop. We'll be here.
All the birds.
Right.
Is there any questions? Is anybody monitoring anything?
Nothing on there. Let me check Facebook.
Look.
I'm not ready to go yet, so you have to find something to talk about.
Well, we'll probably at least let the viewers go.
So you want to remember? Let's see.
And it's, we're a day out or sometimes 2, depending on where the parts come from. So I won't get these parts until Monday earliest.
No questions.
Oh, good.
Don't try to complete it without me.
Oh, I won't. I'm thinking, I'm not certain if we'll be able to do it next week because of maybe Wednesday of next week. We might be able to do it because we don't have classes that day.
Rebuild and reinstall.
Just rebuild it, and then we'll find time to reinstall it because I'll be I'll be gone the week after next week, so I don't want to. There's some other things I got to do on the vehicle while we have the transmission out, maybe a rear main seal or something. But all right, I'm going to go ahead and kill the stream, and if you guys have any questions later on, I will ask or answer them as they come. Thanks for watching.